It's a moody kind of morning. Rained like heck last night, but it looks like it's not supposed to rain again until this afternoon. So I think we're gonna take a hike up to our North Peak campsite. Been working on that for a while. Gonna take up a backpacker's kit and sort of give a tutorial on how that campsite works. We've had a ton of updates in the past month and a half since I've really uploaded any videos. And there's a bunch of new campsites that I'm gonna do a small series of videos with some tours and explanations. And so today I would love to show everyone our North Peak campsite. It's located very close to the North Peak of Seneca Rocks. It's accessible both by the public tourist trails as well as private trails, and has a very unique alpine backpacking kind of feel to it. There's nothing set up at this campsite, and so I have a couple tents with me to sort of show how you bring your own camping gear and how you would approach the campsite, and yeah, exactly where the boundaries of the campsite are and everything. We try with all of our campsites to have you park on Fourth Moon Camp property. There are a few places in town that we can always recommend for overnight parking that's short term, but ultimately it's much more desirable to have your vehicles in a safe and protected private place. So for the North Peak campsite, we have you park very close to the entrance of Fourth Moon Camp. It does require that you have to drive up Roy Gap Road, which you can see is gravel. It's not super well maintained, but it is maintained. It has a few rough spots, but most vehicles, if they have enough clearance and solid enough tires, they're able to make it back here no problem. We always recommend that you have a 4x4 capable vehicle or something that's meant for off-pavement travel, because again, every once in a while after rain, there can be a big enough pothole that you don't want a flat tire out here. All right, we're here at the small little parking area that we have that's very close to the entrance to Fourth Moon Camp. This parking spot can fit several vehicles. It is a little bit bigger than it appears in this video right now, but it is the parking spot for several features of Fourth Moon Camp. It'll be the parking spot for the campsite that's located up at the North Peak of Seneca Rocks. It's also the parking spot for one of our overlanding sites, which is back behind the truck through that creek. That site also serves as a tent site, a walk-up site, and this is also the parking for the Moonshine Aquarius tree net complex, pretty much the whole slackline area of the property. So you walk up the hill and the tree net is up there. So that's for day adventures, overnight camping, visiting slackliners, festivals, things like that. So leaving the parking area, we're gonna hike back towards the Seneca Rocks Tourist Trail that takes us to the North Peak Observation Deck. It's a really leisurely hike from the trailhead down near the water. It's 1 mile and about 900 feet of vertical elevation gain. Really not that bad. I've got 2 tents on my back right now, and doesn't feel like it's gonna be a challenge at all to get my gear up there. But it's definitely not a site that's meant for carrying a whole ton of, glamping gear up. It's a, bare bones, minimalistic type of camping site, very wilderness based. There is no toilet up there, and we do not permit foxholes or any of the like, so you do have to bring some kind of portable camping toilet solution. We offer some for rent, but we do encourage you to bring your own. Other things about that campsite is that maybe about a year ago, more than, we had a forest fire up there that was most likely started by a haphazard tourist that was a little bit off trail, maybe someone that ashed a cigarette or something during a fire ban. But ultimately, as a result, we do not permit forest fires up there. It's very windy on the ridgeline sometimes, and the threat of embers getting out is too great. So no fires, no solo stoves, nothing of the like, no open flames of any kind. The site is on private property, so if you have a good system and a good plan for caring for a doggo
then the site is dog friendly. But, you know, obviously if you're a climber, you can't just leave your dog tied up at your campsite all day while you go climb. It's not an ideal campsite for that. And also on this hike, on this approach to and from the campsite, if you elect to take the tourist trail, once you get off Roy Gap Road, your dogs do have to be on leash. There's a lot of other tourists obviously walking on the trail, a lot of other dogs, so it's important to follow the rules. We do have a private trail back on the property that can also lead in a more direct fashion, pretty much right up to the North Peak campsite. It's a pretty significant vertical gain. It goes through some rocky territory. It's not ideal for hauling up your gear, but it is a more easy and direct path to and from your vehicle once your campsite has been established up there. No matter what, Roy Gap Road to the tourist trail is an easy 1.5 miles, very relaxing, very scenic, and very well maintained. We definitely don't recommend using any of these as recreational trails. These are access trails to the climbing routes, which means that climbers will be present in those areas. And unless you have a climbing helmet and some experience with being around that kind of environment, it's not advisable to be there, especially with multiple people. It's not funny at all, but it is ironic that it says in case of emergency call 911, because there's no cell phone reception out here. How are you going to do that? Well, if you absolutely had to, there are a few, believe it or not, payphones still present in the area. And obviously if you have a cell phone, if you're able to get to connectivity, you can call 911. The closest Wi-Fi networks are going to be at Yoakum's General Store, but there's also a Wi-Fi network at the Discovery Center, the Welcome Center for Seneca Rocks, or the Visitor Center down near the parking lot. So from the outside of the building, you should still be able to glean a signal if you needed to make an emergency call. Ultimately, though, those are Wi-Fi networks, and if you need an actual cell tower, the closest one is going to be a church that's a couple miles south of Seneca Rocks on the east side of the road, which is the left side. We call it the Church of Immaculate Reception. And I believe it's a cell tower that's privately owned by a local quarry, but is able to also provide some reception to our phones when we're in the area. So yeah, you just got to really be prepared for coming to a site like this. I would highly recommend having something like a Garmin GPS emergency sat phone. They make one called the InReach, which is renowned with backpackers and outdoor enthusiasts who spend time in places where cell phones don't work. And they've saved countless lives, I'm sure. Saved also countless dollars in rescue costs and medical bills, things like that. So just consider that none of our sites have access to internet or cell phone reception. So this North Peak site's no different than the rest. But from each site, you should have some kind of contingency plan for making sure you can get a call out. So as I was talking back there, I turned off of Roy Gap Road and onto the tourist trail that leads us to North Peak. It's very obvious from here. It's a very well-maintained gravel trail. I'm going to throw Holly here on leash in just a second because other dogs are almost certainly going to be on this trail on a Saturday. Basically two portions to this trail. There's this flat portion that sort of traverses along the base, the very, very base of the rocks in the valley, and leads over to a series of very, very long switchbacks that eventually end at the observation deck. So you just follow these straight lines, the flow of normal traffic, and eventually it leads you right to where we're going. So a little more than halfway, there is this small split off that goes to a climbing access trail. You want to avoid taking that. Continue left up the switchbacks. Alright, so as you get close to the end of the trail, you start to see the sky. There's this really big, beautiful tree. And then, yeah, just these like small little stairs. The observation deck is over here on the right. continuing up that way goes to the North Peak where the rocks are. You can see the sign telling you shouldn't go up there. And then back this way is going to be your campsite. Over here we have the horse trails. You recognize those guys. Holly, come on. So yeah, to get to the campsite, there's a bunch of different ways you can go. You can take these little sidetracked trails that sort of meander through the woods. You're gonna do a little bit of guesswork because it's not perfectly marked. There's also a road that continues upwards this direction back towards where the horse trails go, and that one will take you also up to the campsite. Whenever you come here, come on Holly, leave it. Whenever you come here, no matter what, we're going to show you, and bring you up here for your arrival, and then from that point you can sort of decide what the best plan of attack for your approach will be. All right, so right as the burn from last year starts to peter out, we get into the area where our campsite is. And you can see how it's a lot less rocky up here, gets a little more level, options become a little bit more abundant. And yeah, there's that road I was telling you about right there, which is going to be the easier way to access these sites rather than coming up the ridgeline like I did. But curiosity got the better of me, just sort of check in on a few things along that ridgeline. But yeah, when we bring you here, you'll have this very easy way of hiking, something that's a lot more simple and straightforward. And then once you get to this point, this is where you'll decide where you'd like to make your camp. Starting here, you could, with a small tent, make it work right in that notch right there. That's pretty level. You'd probably want to have a pretty good mattress or sleeping pad. But if you head a little bit further up, there is a little bit of a nicer option. Well, I gotta admit, setting up the tent up here makes me really want to stay up here, but I don't think I'm gonna do it tonight. Do it another night. But you can see this is a pretty basic two-person tent, and it fits on this ridge line pretty easily. We're gonna do some work progressively over time to make the ridge line a little more formidable and comfortable. Slowly get rocks up and out like we've been getting them out and putting them in piles. But ultimately, if you bring, I think, at most a 4-person tent, you'll be able to find space. Anything bigger than that, and it's going to be a little bit tricky. This is super ideal for 1-person backpacker tents. You could fit 20 up here, but we're not trying to do that kind of impact. Road down there, So coming up, you can see how easy it would be just to follow that until you get to this point here. Tree coverage, it's really hard to get orientation, but over in that direction is North Peak. Where the road goes over there is where my property is, where Fourth Moon Camp is, where the private trail leads up to here. And then down this direction is going to be all of Fourth Moon Camp and everything that we offer down there. And up this direction, if you continued the ridgeline as high as you could possibly go, you would end up after a couple miles on the North Fork Mountain Trail, which is the large 26-mile trail that extends on the ridgeline of the North Fork Mountain, which serves pretty much as like the most eastern boundary of Fourth Moon Camp. Even back this far though, there are some camping options if you were interested, if you wanted even more privacy from North Peak while still being incredibly close. That's a pretty nice field to camp in. Just got to make sure you stay off the center of it, because every once in a while my neighbors will drive up in relation to the horses using this for a vehicle. So try to spread out and allow a vehicle to pass if you're going to make camp back here. So here's the ridgeline coming from Seneca and extending east towards the North Fork Mountain, and at a very clear point, pretty much where the most ideal camping site is up there. There's now our trail that follows down this pretty steep ridge line. It's a razorback trail, and sort of zigzags and steps down through the rock, so you want to be very careful as you take it. But it's a straight shot right to the car where the truck was at the start of this, and makes for a more efficient day-to-day access for your vehicle if they're going to be up there for more than one night. As you descend, it gets rockier and rockier until there's like 10 to 15 foot boulders popping out. It was a neat little discovery, but we found a place where you can chill on some rocks that has a view of both of the perma rigs that are up right now. You can see moonshine down there. And over here, Aquarius Moon. As you get down to near the bottom of this trail, White Medina, you get to this little sort of like replica of Seneca that's out here on Fourth Moon Camp. Has our own little mini gun sight notch there. But it's a pretty big piece of rock. There are definitely some fun little boulder climbs on there, but we have to do a lot of cleaning to sort of get them opened up. This one's like 20 feet tall. Follows one big crack. They're pretty cool.